When I first took the job, it sounded almost too good to be true. Night shift dispatcher at a small-town trucking company? Quiet nights, decent pay, and all I had to do was monitor routes and answer the occasional radio call? Sold. It wasn't glamorous, but hey, not everyone's cut out for college, right? I started on a Monday, right after a storm had rolled through. The night air felt heavy, like it hadn't quite let go of all that rain. When I arrived at the dispatch office, a converted garage on the edge of town, it was already dark. The building sat at the end of a long, cracked driveway, flanked by fields that seemed to stretch forever. The only thing nearby was an old graveyard a few hundred yards away. The graveyard didn't bother me much. I'd always been more scared of the living than the dead. But by the end of my first night, I wasn't so sure. It started innocently enough. I just settled into the creaky office chair, the room lit by a single overhead bulb. The setup was bare bones. A desk with a radio console, a wall-mounted map of our routes, and a dusty clock that ticked a little too loudly. My first call came in at 11:23 p.m. Dispatch. This is Rig 12. You copy. Got you, Rig 12. Everything good. There was a pause just a little too long. Then, the driver's voice, low and tense. Yeah, just thought I saw someone on the side of the road. Mile marker 38. Looked like a kid. Mile marker 38 was out by the woods. A stretch of road no one had any business walking along at night. You want me to send someone out? I asked, half hoping he'd say no. Nah, he muttered. They weren't there when I turned around. The line went quiet after that. I logged the call, shook off the unease creeping up my neck, and tried to focus on the paperwork piled on the desk. Then the second call came. Dispatch, this is Rig 8. You got anyone else running out here near 22? I frowned. Negative, Rig 8. Why? There was static on the line. I could hear his breathing, shaky and uneven. Thought I saw... Hell, I don't even know. There was a rig ahead of me, same make and model as ours. But when I called out, they didn't answer. Just turned down a side road and disappeared. I checked the logs. No one else was supposed to be on Route 22. You sure it wasn't one of ours? I'm telling you, they just vanished. Damn lights blinked out like they weren't even there. Before I could respond, the line went dead. I stared at the radio, my gut tightening. 2 strange calls in under an hour? Coincidence? Had to be. I was wrong. At 1:37 a.m., the radio crackled to life again. But this time, no one spoke. Hello, I said, my voice sounding too loud in the empty office. Static. I repeated myself. Nothing. Then, faintly, like it was coming from miles away, help me? The voice was distorted, like it had been chewed up by the radio waves before it got to me. Who is this? Identify yourself. I demanded, heart pounding. No answer, just static. And then, as clear as day, a sound that chilled me to my core. A child's laughter. I bolted upright, knocking my coffee mug off the desk. The sound cut off abruptly, leaving only the ticking of the clock. I don't remember how long I sat there, staring at the radio, waiting for it to come back to life. When it didn't, I told myself it was a prank, some bored trucker messing with the new guy. But deep down, I knew better. I leaned back in my chair, staring out the window at the graveyard in the distance. The moon had dipped behind the clouds, leaving the headstones bathed in faint shadows. That's when I saw it. Something moved between the gravestones. Slow, deliberate, too big to be an animal but too hunched to be a person. I blinked, hoping it was a trick of the light. But when I looked again, it was closer, and it was staring right at me. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. Whatever it was, it stood perfectly still, just at the edge of the graveyard. The shadows and distance made it hard to make out, but I could feel it watching me. My mind raced. Could it be an animal? Person? A trick of the light? But even as I tried to reason it away, I knew it wasn't any of those things. The radio crackled again. Dispatch! You there? I practically jumped out of my chair. It was Rig 8. Yeah, I'm here, I said, fumbling for the mic. What's going on? Rig 8? His voice was shaky. I'm pulled over. Had to stop. Something's wrong. What do you mean, wrong? There's a figure standing in the road up ahead. Been there for a few minutes now, just staring. It doesn't move. My heart dropped. Where are you? Mile marker 22. It's just standing there, man. I got my brights on, but I can't see its face. It's like the shadows don't touch it. The static on the line buzzed louder for a second, and then I heard him mutter, "Shit, it's moving. Get out of there," I said, my voice rising. "Turn around and get back here." "I can't," he said, panic creeping into his voice. "It's coming closer." The radio went dead. I stared at the console, gripping the mic so hard my knuckles turned white. "Rig 8, come in." "Rig 8, do you copy?" Nothing. The figure in the graveyard was gone. I rushed to the window, scanning the field for any sign of movement. The night was still, too still, and the shadows between the gravestones seemed to stretch further than they should. My phone buzzed on the desk, breaking the silence. I grabbed it, expecting a call from Rig 8. Instead, it was a notification, a text from an unknown number. "You're next." I dropped the phone like it had burned me. The lights in the office flickered, once, twice, then went out, plunging the room into darkness. I scrambled for the flashlight in the desk drawer, my fingers trembling. When I flicked it on, the beam of light illuminated the far corner of the room. That's when I heard it. The sound of footsteps, slow and deliberate, coming from the lot outside. I moved to the window, flashlight shaking in my hand, and shone it into the dark. At first, I didn't see anything. Then, just beyond the edge of the light, something moved. It stepped into view, and my stomach churned. It was tall, impossibly tall, with limbs that seemed too long for its body. The skin was pale, almost translucent, and its face was blank. No eyes, no mouth, just smooth, featureless flesh where features should have been. It raised a hand, pointing directly at the window. The radio crackled to life again, and a voice whispered through the static, "Run?" I didn't wait to be told twice. I grabbed my keys and bolted for the door, not even bothering to lock up behind me. The lot was eerily quiet as I ran to my car, the graveyard looming in the distance. The figure was gone, but the feeling of being watched clung to me like a second skin. I threw myself into the driver's seat and started the engine. The headlights flooded the lot, and for a moment, I thought I was safe. Then I saw it. Standing in the middle of the road, just beyond the reach of the headlights, was the figure. It tilted its head, as if curious, and took a single step toward me. I slammed the car into reverse, tires screeching as I backed out of the lot. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely grip the wheel. As I turned onto the main road, I glanced in the rearview mirror. The figure was there, standing in the middle of the road, its featureless face turned toward me. And then it started running. The thing didn't just run, it sprinted. Its long, spindly limbs moved with unnatural speed, eating up the distance between us faster than anything humanly possible. I floored the gas pedal, the car roaring as it shot down the deserted road. My heart was slamming against my ribs, my eyes darting between the windshield and the rearview mirror. It was keeping up. I swerved onto the highway, hoping the open road would give me a chance to lose it. The thing never broke stride. Its faceless head locked on me like a predator zeroing in on prey. I fumbled for my phone, desperate to call someone, anyone. But when I glanced at the screen, it was frozen. The notification was still there, staring back at me. "You're next." The headlights caught a sign up ahead, "Exit 12, Old Mill Road." I didn't know where it led, but I didn't care. I veered off the highway, tires screeching as I took the turn too fast. The road was darker here, lined with towering trees that blocked out the moonlight. The car's high beams barely pierced the blackness. My knuckles were white on the steering wheel, the sound of my own breathing loud in the cramped cabin. Then silence. I glanced in the rearview mirror. The thing was gone. I slowed the car, my heart still racing, and peered into the darkness behind me. Nothing. No sign of it. For a moment, I thought I was safe, until I heard the tapping. It was faint at first, like raindrops on the roof, but it grew louder, more insistent. A steady, deliberate tap, tap, tap. My blood ran cold. The tapping was coming from the passenger side window. I didn't want to look. Every instinct screamed at me to keep my eyes on the road and drive. But my head turned anyway, drawn by some horrific compulsion. The flashlight beam from earlier must have still been rolling around on the passenger seat, because in the faint glow of its dying light, I saw it. The faceless thing was clinging to the side of the car, its skeletal fingers pressed against the glass. It cocked its head, almost playfully, as if to say, "You can't escape." I screamed and swerved, trying to shake it off. The tires skidded on the wet pavement, and the car fishtailed wildly. For a second, I thought I'd lost control completely, but somehow, I managed to keep it on the road. The thing, however, was gone. I didn't have time to process what had just happened. Up ahead, the road narrowed, leading to an old wooden bridge that stretched over a sluggish, black river. The bridge looked ancient, barely wide enough for my car, but there was no turning back now. As I approached, the radio crackled to life again. "You shouldn't have come here." It was the same distorted voice I'd heard earlier. "What do you want from me?" I shouted, as if the radio could hear me. Static. Then, "Turn around, while you still can." I didn't listen. I was too scared to stop, too scared to turn back. I gunned it across the bridge, the old wood groaning under the weight of the car. When I reached the other side, the air seemed heavier, thicker, like I'd crossed into another world. The trees loomed taller, their gnarled branches twisting into unnatural shapes. Shadows danced in the corners of my vision, but when I looked directly at them, there was nothing there. The road ended abruptly in front of an old, dilapidated gas station. The sign above the building flickered weakly, spelling out "Stop" in missing and burnt-out letters. Against every ounce of better judgment, I pulled in and parked. The headlights illuminated the crumbling facade, the windows smeared with dirt and grime. I killed the engine and sat there, gripping the steering wheel, trying to steady my breathing. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the occasional creak of the wind against the old building. Then I saw it. In the reflection of the gas station window, something moved. It wasn't the faceless figure from before. This was something else, something worse. Its silhouette was jagged, its movements erratic, like it was glitching in and out of existence. As I stared, it slowly turned toward me, its head tilting in that same unnatural, curious way. And then it smiled. The smile wasn't human. It was too wide, stretching across its distorted face like someone had drawn it on with a blade. It didn't belong on any living thing. I sat frozen in the driver's seat, my body screaming at me to move, to run, but I couldn't. My fingers locked around the wheel, my breath caught in my throat. The figure in the gas station window didn't move. It just stared, that grotesque grin carved into its shadowy features. Then it raised a hand. The gesture was slow, deliberate, as if it were beckoning me inside. "Nope," I whispered, shaking my head violently. "Not happening." I slammed the car into reverse, my tires screeching against the cracked pavement. But as I backed away, the figure stepped forward, moving with a jerky, unnatural gait. It didn't walk. It shifted, like it was skipping frames in a film. My headlights flickered, and for a brief moment, the thing vanished. Then, a deafening bang shook the car. I whipped around, my heart hammering, to see the back window spiderwebbed with cracks. The thing was there, pressed against the glass, its jagged form writhing like smoke trapped in a bottle. I screamed, slamming the car into drive and flooring the gas pedal. The engine roared as the car lurched forward, skidding wildly onto the main road. In the rearview mirror, the figure clung to the back of the car, its distorted face pressed against the shattered glass. Its smile hadn't changed, but its eyes, or the black voids where its eyes should have been, seemed to grow wider, hungrier. I jerked the wheel violently, swerving left and right, trying to shake it off. The tires screeched, the car rocking as I fought for control. Finally, with one sharp turn, the thing lost its grip and tumbled onto the road. But it didn't stay down. In the mirror, I watched as it unfolded itself, its limbs twisting unnaturally as it rose to its full height. It stared after me for a moment before breaking into another sprint, its body moving too fast, too wrong, for something its size. My focus snapped back to the road just in time to see the bridge ahead. The same bridge I'd crossed before. Only this time, something was different. There were figures lining the edges, their shapes barely visible in the dim light. They were motionless, their faces turned toward me, but I couldn't make out any features. The radio crackled again. "Don't stop!" The voice was faint, barely audible over the sound of my own panicked breathing. "Whatever you do, don't stop!" I gripped the wheel tighter, my pulse hammering in my ears as I barreled toward the bridge. The figures didn't move, but as I got closer, I saw them more clearly. Their faces were blank, smooth, faceless, like the thing that had been chasing me. My headlights illuminated them as I sped past, their heads turning in unison to follow my car. The air inside the car grew cold, my breath visible in the sudden chill. The moment I reached the other side of the bridge, the radio erupted in static, louder than before. I yanked the volume knob, but it wouldn't budge. The noise grew louder and louder until I thought my eardrums would burst. And then it stopped. The silence that followed was almost worse. I glanced in the mirror again, half expecting to see the figure sprinting after me. But the road behind me was empty. For the first time that night, I let myself believe it was over. That's when the car died. The engine sputtered once, twice, and then fell silent, leaving me coasting to a stop in the middle of the road. The headlights flickered and went out, plunging me into darkness. I sat there, gripping the wheel, too terrified to move. My phone was dead, the flashlight long forgotten on the passenger seat. And then I heard it, a sound I'll never forget. It was laughter, soft at first, like a child's giggle, but it grew louder, deeper, until it echoed all around me, came from everywhere. And then the voice returned, louder and clearer than ever before, as if it were right in the car with me. "You should have turned back." The voice seemed to seep into my bones, its words vibrating in the small, suffocating space of the car. I whipped my head around, scanning the darkness for any sign of movement, but I couldn't see a thing. The laughter didn't stop. It echoed, rising and falling, bouncing around me as if the very air was mocking my fear. "Who's there?" I shouted, my voice cracking. The only answer was more laughter. My trembling hands fumbled for the flashlight on the passenger seat. I grabbed it and flicked it on, the weak beam cutting through the suffocating dark. The circle of light landed on the road ahead, but it revealed nothing but the empty stretch of asphalt disappearing into the void. And then the light flickered. For a moment I thought it was dying, but then I realized it wasn't the flashlight. The shadows around me were moving. Shapes shifted in the edges of the beam, twisting and writhing, slipping in and out of existence. I swung the light wildly, trying to pin them down, but they always stayed just out of reach. The laughter deepened, turning guttural, as if it came from something too large and too ancient to exist in this world. The voice returned, whispering so close to my ear that I could feel its icy breath on my skin. "Why run when you're already mine?" Something slammed into the side of the car, rocking it violently. The flashlight slipped from my grip and clattered to the floor, its beam bouncing erratically. I yanked the door handle, desperate to escape, but it wouldn't budge. It was stuck, locked tight, as if the car itself was conspiring against me. Another slam, harder this time. The glass in the passenger window spiderwebbed with cracks. "No, no, no," I muttered, my voice a desperate mantra. A third impact and the window shattered, spraying shards of glass across the seat. I turned to face the breach, but before I could move, a hand reached through. If you could call it a hand. It was impossibly long and thin, the fingers like spider legs, each tipped with something sharp and glinting. The pale, translucent flesh seemed to pulse, as if it were alive. The hand clawed at the air, groping blindly for me. I pressed myself against the driver's door, trying to stay as far away as possible, but it was no use. Found my leg. The moment its fingers touched me, a searing cold shot through my body, freezing me in place. My vision blurred, my thoughts turning sluggish, as if I were sinking into some dark, endless void. Then I heard the horn. It blared, loud and sharp, cutting through the oppressive noise like a lifeline. The thing's hand recoiled, jerking back through the broken window. My senses snapped back, and I realized with a start that another pair of headlights was cutting through the dark. A truck. The rig barreled down the road toward me, its horn blaring continuously. The shadows around the car writhed in agitation, retreating from the light as if it burned them. The truck skidded to a stop a few feet away, and the driver's door flew open. A man jumped out, flashlight in hand. "Hey, you okay?" he shouted. I didn't have the words to respond. I threw open the door and stumbled out, collapsing onto the road as my legs gave out beneath me. The driver knelt beside me, his flashlight sweeping over the empty car. What the hell happened here? I opened my mouth to answer, but the words caught in my throat. Behind him, just at the edge of the truck's headlights, the shadows had stopped retreating. They were watching, and they were waiting. The man helped me to my feet, his grip firm but gentle. "Come on, let's get you out of here." I didn't argue. I let him guide me to the truck, my eyes fixed on the darkness behind us. As we pulled away, the shadows shifted, moving closer to the car I'd abandoned. The last thing I saw in the rearview mirror was the faceless figure standing in the middle of the road, its jagged smile glowing faintly in the night. The driver never asked any more questions, and I never offered any answers. When we reached the safety of town, I got out of the truck, thanked him, and walked away without looking back. I quit the dispatcher job the next morning. But sometimes, late at night, I still hear the laughter. And I know it's not over. The laughter didn't stop. Not really. Even when I was safe back home, surrounded by familiar walls and the pale light of the television humming in the corner, it lingered, just at the edge of my hearing. I quit the night shift without a second thought. Told them I wasn't feeling well, and when they pressed, I made up some excuse about family trouble. They didn't seem surprised. That should have been my first clue. Days turned into weeks, and the memories of that night didn't fade. If anything, they grew sharper. The faceless figure, the laughter, the impossibly long hand. It was burned into my mind. But the real nightmare began when I started seeing them during the day. It started small, a flicker in the corner of my vision, shadows that stretched too far for the angle of the light. At first, I thought I was just tired, paranoid. But then I saw them again, and again. The first time it was clear, I was sitting in a coffee shop downtown. It was broad daylight, the streets bustling with life, the sun shining brightly through the windows. And there it was, standing across the street, its blank face turned directly toward me. I froze, the mug halfway to my lips, coffee spilling onto the table. No one else noticed it. People walked past, laughing, chatting, going about their lives as if the thing wasn't standing there, as if it didn't exist. I blinked, and it was gone. But it kept happening. Grocery stores, sidewalks, even inside my own apartment. Always at the edges, always watching. I started sleeping with the lights on, the TV playing quietly in the background, anything to drown out the silence. But the laughter found its way through. And then the dreams began. In my dreams, I was back at the dispatcher's office. The lights flickered, the radio crackled, and the graveyard stretched endlessly outside the window. But it wasn't empty anymore. They were there, dozens of them, standing among the gravestones, their faceless heads turned toward the office, watching. In the dream, I couldn't move. I was frozen in my chair, my fingers clutching the desk as the faceless figures pressed closer, their bodies jerking and shifting unnaturally. The laughter would echo through the room, growing louder and louder until I woke up in a cold sweat, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. I tried to find help. Therapists, priests, even psychics. None of it worked. One night, desperate for answers, I drove back to the dispatcher's office. It was abandoned, the building boarded up and overgrown with weeds. But I forced my way inside, flashlight in hand, and found the old radio console still sitting on the desk, covered in a thick layer of dust. I turned it on. The static roared to life, deafening in the silent room. I twisted the knobs, searching for something, anything, and then I heard it. The voice. "You shouldn't have come back." The flashlight flickered, the shadows in the room stretching impossibly long. I turned to run, but the door slammed shut on its own, locking me inside. The radio crackled again, and the laughter began, louder than ever before. They were there, in the shadows, in the corners, pressing against the walls. Faceless figures with jagged, distorted shapes, their grins stretching too wide, their void-like eyes fixed on me. I screamed, banging on the door, but it wouldn't budge. The figures moved closer, their bodies glitching and jerking as they surrounded me. "You're ours now," the voice whispered, chilling me to my core. And then, just as they reached me, everything went black. When I woke up, I was lying in my apartment, the TV still playing quietly in the corner. For a moment, I thought it had all been a dream, but when I sat up, I saw them. The figures were outside my window, pressed against the glass, their faceless heads tilted in unison. I don't know what they want or why they chose me, but I know this: they're always watching, and they'll never let me go. That was the last night I felt safe. If you ever find yourself working the night shift alone, keep the lights on, watch the shadows, and whatever you do, don't answer the radio, because if you do, they'll find you too.